Brother Ed, you were mentioning this is the time to bring that non-anxious presence to the table and how much that matters for chaplaincy, but it's really going to be required for any citizen who wants to do what is right or just or progressive as we move forward toward a hopeful, better future. One thing that I'm noticing, and this is what I came to you the other day at lunch and we talked about it, was I am seeing a lot of my white friends just all of a sudden the weight of the brevity of the situation has hit them all at once, and there's I think a true spirit of lamenting among some of them, but also going, but that's a lament of a few days or a week versus a century, right? And then they're rushing to the table, but I'm also noticed, but they're also bringing some anxiety to that too. And you said it so well. You said, well, there's a difference between reacting and responding. Can you walk through what that means?
Sure, sure. To respond to something is like, you know, if someone says something to you, um, how do you respond? In preaching, in the African American church, we are response. You know, uh, to to respond to something takes a bit of thought. In my opinion, anyway. To react, you know, to something, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Sometimes that's not constructive.
It's an
So
impulse, right?
impulse, and that's a good way to put it. Uh, reacting, uh, reacting is going towards your impulse. Responding is sitting back and thinking how am I going to respond to you? Um, how am I, if you say something that's not kind to me, you're waiting for my response. Especially if someone does something mean and has a mean spirit. Uh, they're really saying it to see how I'm going to respond. And again, and the last time earlier we talked about, I tell my grandson, how do you respond when a policeman pulls you over? Don't react, but respond.
It's
That
an
means,
intentional.
and that means listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Response means listening and processing how you're going to respond, positively or negatively. Most of the time, if you react, it's going to come out negative.
Yeah. Well, you said something that I thought was so powerful. You said that in your personal life and testimony, you were pretty young when you had this conviction of I'm going to be a person who responds.
Yeah.
And because you had mentioned that you had some time where you've experienced
Sure.
some injustice as well, or even racism to
Sure.
a degree. And what was it that spoke to you? Because that's not common for I think for young people to have a wisdom like that. What was it that informed you? Man, this is what it's going to take if I'm going to really be a person of progress, or I'm going to be a success through this.
I think it goes back to my mother, God rest her, and my teaching in my earlier years. Um, I just have a DNA. I'm a different DNA than other people, I guess. I guess some people may call it weird or whatever, but I've always, I guess then it goes back to, I've always been the big kid. So I've always been conscious that I could really do damage on somebody if I reacted the way they want me to. So
And you were a wrestler at one time,
at
so you
one
really
time,
could. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But so you even had tools at your disposal
yeah.
to react.
I played football. So
Okay. Yeah.
football, that was really my instrument of letting out some of my aggression, because I played on the line. So I could hit it. I
Yeah.
could hit every. I get hit, and I'm hit every play. But um, to respond to someone, that's after I started going to school, really, and really understanding and reading some of Dr. King. Dr. King's my earthly hero, God rest him. But he talked about, he even talked about these riots back in the '60s when they used to have riots. Remember, I told you before that I was witness to those riots when he was murdered. But I remember there's something very prevalent. He said that even though we are advocates of nonviolence, that ought to be our response to nonviolence. Um, but then we must understand the reason for the violence. As much as we react to it, we got to understand the reasons behind it. And he said, riots are the language of the unheard. That caught me right between the ears. I mean, wow.
And and in that particular speech too, he was addressing everyone and even calling out leadership too.
Yes, yes.
He said the system, like, it will not change unless you really start developing ears to hear the story behind the actions or the story
That's-
behind the story.
That's right. That's right. And that's why people call it this today. They call it systematic racism, because it's not one particular person. It's the system that these young people today, they're different than when I was growing up. These young people are doing it, but I'm pleased to say a great majority of them are doing it in a peaceful way. It's those people who come in and stir it up, and then reaction comes, and then the police get they're at defense, and so they're attacking, and so we're at each other. There has to be some response, some peaceful response.
Well, it's amazing to think, even when you look back at even the clips that you've showed me of Dr. King's of speeches I hadn't even seen before, that he, which I think we can all agree was way ahead of his time, and I asked you, I said, do you consider him a prophet? You're
Yes.
like, absolutely. And when we look at his words, he was equipping people for reaction versus response back in
That's
the
right.
60s, and he was an advocate of response, because it was never, and I think some people, at least the impression I'm getting is, if I'm not passionate, I think it's a problem when you equate passion with reaction. But but what Dr. King proved is that you can still have deep conviction and passion,
Yeah.
but response makes it even more powerful.
A peaceful thought-provoking, and prayer has to be your foundation, okay? Your faith has to be your foundation. Who do you have faith in? I mentioned, I talked about people sometime in the church, and I remember I told you once that there are some people that love the church more than they love Christ. And Christ has to be the foundation of how you react. So, to answer your question, when I react now, I always think, and I know we did it years ago. We used to wear those armbands. What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
But it's still prevalent. How would Jesus react?
Or respond, yeah.
Or how
Yeah,
would he
yeah,
respond?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he responded differently than he was expected to respond. You see, he responded to says, no. I don't hate you. I don't hate my enemies. I love them. I don't, even though you don't like me. And so I have a thing now where I tell people that, that I know that I'm not their favorite person, but I'm going to love you, and there's nothing you really can do about it.